Swetha, and today I'll be talking about a guide to full stack web development in 2024. I'm gonna put that in the chat there. I'd like this session to be, interactive. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from, and if you're just starting out in development. Or whatever background it is, I would love to know. So please do enter in the chat. So I'm originally from India and I moved to Canada many years ago. I have a degree in computer science and I currently work as a software engineer at Rakuten Kobo, based here in Toronto. And you can find me on Twitter at Code and Chai or LinkedIn and Instagram by my name. So when I was asked to speak at today's event, I was trying to think how I can use this opportunity to serve the tech industry as a women software developer. And I remembered the statistic from a global developer survey, which showed that women make up only 20 to 25% of the developers in the industry. So this is a huge gap if you think about it. Women are being left out of the conversation when it comes to technology. Being in the industry and specifically web development for many years, I wanted to take this opportunity to encourage more women into tech, especially development. This is a field where anyone with really any background can get started. There's sometimes this fear of, oh, I need to be good at math. And that's absolutely not a barrier to become a web developer. In fact, most of the web development projects are not math heavy at all. But also there's always going to be learning in this job, and that's the nature of technology. And it's constantly evolving. But the benefit of being a junior is you can sort of skip right ahead to the latest technologies. Sometimes you can even leapfrog over the senior developers who are working on older technologies. And that is one advantage you have as a newcomer. So yeah, I'll be talking about, I want to share with you folks who are looking to transition into web development and are not sure where to start. I'm going to give you a high-level overview of modern web development and how you can, use this information and make it work for yourself. So yeah, the first thing before you start on this roadmap is to understand why you want to do this. Set a goal, set something that you want to achieve out of this. Maybe you want to get a job, or maybe you want to build your own product. But I'd recommend have a goal that is project oriented, so that it helps you keep on yourself on track. So let's say you want to build 5 projects in the next 5 months, and it's already been 2 months and you've only done 1 project. So now you know to pace yourself to be on track. So that's really helpful. So figure out the goal that you want to achieve for yourself in the next 6 months or a year, and then get started with step 1. So the first step is internet fundamentals, because everything that's happening on this roadmap is on the web, websites, front end, back end, servers, how do you deploy, how do you create, amazing front end, amazing user experience and developer experience. So all that is, on the web. So start with the internet fundamentals. What is a website? It's basically a collection of files and folders that live on a server. And what is internet? It's a physical infrastructure of connected devices, and that delivers information from one device to another over wires or Wi-Fi. And what is a web browser? We interact with web browser all the time. But what exactly is it? It's an application where users, interact with web resources, and there are many options available. But as web developers, we need to, pick evergreen browsers, which basically means, they're constantly being updated. Popular ones for web developers are Safari, Chrome, Firefox, Polypane, and even Arc. So yeah, websites are built on 3 languages, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, because browsers can only read these 3 languages. And what does a web developer do? At the most basic level, we write code that browsers can read. And also these browsers, they're manufactured by companies, so they're subject to a lot of design innovation or hardware evolution, right? So these things force them to add new features into the browser. So as web developers, we are constantly, we need to respond to those changes. So now you move on to HTML and CSS. There's a lot of content on HTML and CSS that you can find on YouTube, Udemy, and all of that, starting from old practices to the latest ones. So be careful and try to find the latest tutorials. HTML and CSS is sort of your first step into full stack web development journey. Just to show you an example, this blue button on my screen at the top here, how do you make it blue? How do you add this like little icon next to it? How do you change color when you hover over it? All that is achieved by HTML and CSS. And then next, you learn a little bit about Flexbox and grids. These help with layouts on your page. And then you move on to intermediate level where you learn semantic tags. Don't just use your div tags. Learn semantic tags, and that help you make your websites more accessible. And I want to mention that accessibility is very important. It should not be considered as a nice to have or as an afterthought. It should be part of your design and development process. And then learn media queries. Media queries are used to make sure that your pages look great on devices of all screen sizes. And then you can also learn a bit about CSS animations. At this point, I want to talk about Tailwind CSS. It is becoming very popular. A CSS framework right now in the market. But even if you don't get to Tailwind CSS, learn your fundamental CSS and master it, and that's what's important. Actually, at this point, I want to stop and I want to say what's going to happen when you start learning HTML and CSS. You're going to have lots of questions, lots of doubts, and you're going to get stuck. So and no matter what course you choose, you're going to have questions. So at this point, what do you do in 2024? You have to start using AI. Artificial intelligence is, it helps you educate faster. The advice we've all got is, if you're stuck, go to Google for answers. And that's how I did it when I started my developer journey. We go on Google, we search, we have 10 different answers and 10 different tabs open. And 10 different tabs open, and we're trying to find which one works best. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can still do that, but at the beginner stages, as you're trying to learn as much as you can, as fast as you can, Google doesn't help, because there's a new player in town, large language models, these AI models, ChatGPT 3.5, 4.0. These models are so much better at tutoring and mentoring. So what you want is to have an AI, assistant that helps you alongside whatever preparation that you're doing. And I recommend ChatGPT 4.0. It costs you about $20 a month for subscription, or you can really pick any, interactive tutorial that has an AI assistant alongside. So just to show you how it works, this is ChatGPT 4.0, and then I'm gonna ask it a very simple, basic question. So, what is p tag in HTML? And it's gonna give me an answer. It's gonna tell me p tag, is used to define a paragraph, and it's a block element. So what is a block element? Well, we have to wait for it to finish giving us an answer. Then you ask it, what's a block element? It tells you it starts on a new line and stretches out to the full width available, and that's a block element. So why do we need, a span tag if we already have p tag? Okay, we still have to wait. And then it's going to tell us, well, they serve different purposes and are used in different contexts. P tag used to define a paragraph. And wow, this is a lot of information for me right now. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to summarize this answer in 3 lines. Okay, there you go. 4.25. That's not bad. So yeah, as p tag is used for defining paragraphs. Span tag is an inline element. P tag is a block level element. So, you know, very curious minds can use AI software just to continuously chat, and it'll help you learn things in a very deep manner. This is a game changer when you're learning about these initial technologies, because the answer you're looking for is there on the internet somewhere, and you just have to figure out exactly where it is. But with large language models like ChatGPT 4, it reduces the time to zero because you just ask the question and it'll give you the answer. Right now, I gave you a very simple, question, but you can use it even for bigger chunks of code. Actually, let me go ahead and, give you an example with code. So here's a small piece of code, and I'm just going to paste it in ChatGPT, and you can see that, it's trying to figure out what this code does and all the variables and what the function does. So it says the code, is designed to reverse the order of words in a given string. So that's great. It figured out everything for you. So now I'm going to ask it, can you make this code efficient? If I can spell that right. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. Great, that's like 2 lines of code, or one actually. So this is how you use ChatGPT. And honestly, even if you don't use AI, you're still going to learn. But what you can achieve in 8 months, you can achieve that in much less time because you're progressing so fast and you're not, spending too much time trying to figure out every little detail by yourself. And also, don't go for ChatGPT 3.5. Go with ChatGPT 4. It's the best right now. 3.5 is pretty basic when it comes to coding and logical abilities. So you want to go with GPT 4.0. Now, moving on to Chrome DevTools. Chrome DevTools, think of it as something that helps you inspect or understand your HTML and CSS and JavaScript better. So just to give you a quick overview, this is our website, Kobo website, and you can just right-click, go to Inspect. And then you can see that it gives you all these different tabs. You can see your HTML here, your CSS here, and you can also access your network calls. So all these tabs help you, debug your front end and understand what's happening under the hood. So in physical terms, like you can think of it like your tool wrench that helps you fix things. At this point, I think you can start building projects. You can use HTML and CSS to build like static pages or blog page. And as you start your project, you have to scope them correctly. Clearly define what the project should do and shouldn't do. Take a simple project, for example, build HTML, add styling, and then add a footer at the bottom. So once this is complete, consider your project to be done. Of course, you can add more on top of this, but in the initial stages, these quick wins help you build confidence. So yeah, whatever project you decide to do it, but always keep building and shipping on GitHub, which we'll get to in some time. Next, we have JavaScript. The purpose of JavaScript is to allow developers to add functionality and interactivity to the browser. Learn about variables, functions, objects, and DOM. Obviously, I won't have time to go into each of these in detail. But don't forget to use AI. Don't wait to ask someone later or learn later. This is like a personal mentor for you, dedicated 24/7. So yeah, fire away with questions. And then learn a little bit about JavaScript under the hood, some advanced sides of JavaScript, like how queuing works, or what's event loop, or what's a thread pool in JavaScript. Probably you won't need, you won't need it every day in your dev life, but something that you should know about because it helps you understand what's happening under the hood. Moving on, we have package managers. Package managers are basically, helping you to install dependencies, organize your project, and use some of advanced features like monorepos and manage your scripts and all that stuff. It's not very important, but it is part of the developer experience, so you should, know about it. And then moving on to Git and GitHub. Git helps you understand how do you manage your source code, and GitHub helps you publish that. So these are tools for when you're ready to showcase your work, or you're working on a sizable project, or you're working in like a multiple, team setup. Um, it becomes chaos if you don't use systems like this. So it's important to organize your code generally. So say, you want me to like review your code that uh, you know, uh, you're writing to build an app. I can go into your GitHub repo, check out your code, review it, leave some comments, or even make changes myself and then send it to you. So it's helpful with all of that. Moving on, we have React.js. React.js is a pretty popular front-end JavaScript library right now, and it's here to stay, at least for the next 2 years or more. So you should be learning React as a developer who has no experience on any other framework. A lot of popular companies are using React.js, and they will want to hire people who are building on React.js, right? And it increases your chances of getting hired if you pick technologies that are popular in the market. But if you're trying to build something else like a game on your own, then I would probably not recommend this. You might want to explore a game engine or something. But learn the basics of React. What are components, how to pass props, what are hooks, and React context. And also learn about some common practices and design patterns. How to make your components reusable, and things like that. Basically, uh, you know, uh, you have other options as well. Instead of React, you have, React is backed by Meta, and Angular is backed by Google. And then you also have Vue, and you have Svelte, other common options for front end. Moving on to React.js ecosystem, try to learn a little bit about these libraries. I won't get into detail, but it's very useful for basic actions like data fetching, or state management. How do you share data across components and so on? Zustan is very popular with state management these days, so you want to learn a little bit about the ecosystem. At this point, I want to mention about TypeScript. It's a technology built by Microsoft that adds static typing to JavaScript. TypeScript has been there for a while now, but it has completely, broken through and sort of become mandatory if you want to become a full stack developer. It expects you to be much more precise with your types, and that results in a much more robust code. And all this said, I want to say that these technologies are very relevant, and as you start learning these at each step, you realize how they all make sense and how it makes your code base so much better and prettier. Moving on to testing. Testing is very important. It teaches you how to build a complete software. Complete software is not just your source code, but also, code that tests your code, if that makes sense. Playwright provides end-to-end testing framework, and there's also Jest, which is a popular testing framework created by Facebook and used by Uber, Airbnb, and other companies. It's used for testing your React components. This pretty much makes you a complete front-end developer. At this point, you start to do a little bit of, a little bit of back-end starts. You start with Linux. It is an operating system, which is very, very common for deploying your servers. You may be using Windows computer or Mac OS, or some of you might even be using Linux. But for the most part, when you're deploying servers in the backend, you would be interacting with a Linux computer. So it's important to know how you navigate in a computer and how to use command line and all of that. Your IDE actually provides a terminal. I can show you. So do this. So this is basically your Linux computer that you have within your text editor that you choose, and you can enter basic commands to navigate within your computer, and all these you will learn as you start building your projects by yourself. Um, Backend, moving on to full stack. This At this point, I would say you're done learning your front end. But that being said, the trend is going to be that as a developer, you will start to work on a wider range of stack. So I think the focus these days should be on becoming a full stack developer. So that means you need to take a look at the backend as well. So Next.js is actually a React framework. There are other React frameworks as well. There's also Remix by Shopify. I think if you're looking at e-commerce, definitely something to take a look at. There's also Astro, there's Gatsby, which is backed by Netlify. For non-React frameworks, we have Nuxt for Vue, and then there's Angular Universal for Angular and SvelteKit for Svelte. So those are the full stack frameworks, meaning the client and the backend are both in one framework. It doesn't mean that you cannot have a separate backend. Especially if you're working on things that are compute heavy, it makes sense to spin out separate backend. Here you could work with microservices architecture, where you have a bunch of separate services like little backend apps, and you can use any kind of language for that. And the benefit of using Node.js is you've already learned your JavaScript and your TypeScript from the front end, and you can use it on the back end as well. So Node.js is very popular. And then you have PHP, Python if you're in the data science world. And then there is Ruby, Java for enterprise applications, and also mobile applications in Android. So these are some common options that you have. And then database, you get to database, learn SQL fundamentals and CRUD operations. I think Postgres is rising to be very popular these days. It's a SQL database, and SQL database, because of the foreign key constraint, it makes it extremely hard for you to write bad code that results in corrupted data. So this is a good option, and I've also heard, it has great performance. So yeah, you could use that. And if you're going with NoSQL, the MongoDB is a great option. Now is a good time to start working on some backend projects. Try to create an app that you like, or a little game, or you can always use your AI assistant to give you some project ideas. And that's all the backend technologies. There are a few important things I want to mention before I wrap up. The first is caching. So Redis is used for caching frequently accessed data. For example, you have a website that does something that is compute heavy. You can just cache the results, store it inside Redis, and access it when needed. And then we have WebSockets. It is an important technology to use in today's time if you're building an application that involves real-time communication, like live chats, real-time location tracking, or multiplayer collaboration, where you want the communication to be delivered as fast as possible. In those cases, you use WebSockets. Web security, being a programmer, you don't want to build code that gets hacked. So knowing web security is, how do you make your app secure? How do you become an ethical hacker yourself? Of course, you don't have to learn everything about it when you're starting off, but, learn important things like what is HTTPS, SQL injection, and so on. Finally, we get to CI/CD, which is continuous integration and continuous delivery deployment. It's basically about creating a workflow to automate your building, testing, and deploying your code into production. And how do you use GitHub Actions? How do you configure your development and all that fun stuff? So yeah, with that, we wrap up our roadmap for full stack web development. What's next? We have interview preparation. Honestly, there are tons of interview kits available online, but the only thing that you really need is dedication, that you don't give up along the way, and make full use of the AI guide or mentor. Unfortunately, no one is offering ChatGPT 4.0 for free. So, get a subscription if you can. And also the best qualification is proof. And the best way to get proof is to build projects and show what you've built. Also remember, you can't know everything. Even I don't know every single thing that I mentioned, and that's okay. You just need to figure out what you need and how to easily learn things. You're starting a new job and your company wants to build things. And they want to use a new technology. You have to be willing to learn. You need to know how to easily read documentation and create simple projects. That's the most important thing. Finally, I want to leave with a positive note. You've seen AI, you've heard how crazy good it is with coding. So, it could make you question if coding is still worth it in 2024, or will AI replace all our jobs? I just want to show you this graph. This is from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's for the US, and you can see it shows you the growth rate for software development jobs projected from 2022 to 2032, and it's at 26%. And the average for all other occupations is, just 3%. So, there's still really good demand for software developers. Even otherwise, if the idea of building things with code and shaping the world with technology gets you excited, don't let negativity and fear hold you back. With that said, I'd like to end my presentation. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions, fire away.